Hey guys, I've got the beautiful Arianne. She's working on the live stream right now. We've got the software and we're using the green screen for the live stream this evening with the new camera. Okay, we've got the new camera.
We're live.
The Logitech. Apparently we're live now. So,
can't work it out.
just wait. Bear with us about 5 minutes. We will be starting up in around about 5 minutes, going live here from Casa James. Tyron's working hard, and I'm prepared. Just had a shave and a shower for the live stream.
Can you check if you could see me?
I can see you, so just let me check. I'm just uploading this video, letting them know it will start in 5 minutes. So look pretty in front of the camera and get the crowd prepared.
Oh, did I just...
Talking to the camera, I want to see if I can hear you.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear the noise? I think it's working fine. Hi DJ. Hi Pete. I think can hear you. They can hear me, so you can come in now. You can start working. Good evening, Master. Sit there and look pretty. Now, I'm done with my job. I have to get back. No, we don't have the washing machine on. It's raining here. Raining here at the moment. That's the noise from the roof. I'm his tech support. I do all the setup. So I help him with the setup, with the video editing, and he does the talking. Peter, come in! Sorry for shouting, guys. Pete, I'm done. Come here, help me. The baby is not fine. He's actually calling me now. He's crying at me.
He is not. Don't lie. Alright. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye. Come on. Turn off the noise.
I am. Oops, sorry about that.
Bye-bye, guys.
Well, hello. So that was a bit of a treat. You got to see Arianne on the live stream. You can see I had to trick her to actually get her in the live stream. And I told her to warm up the group, but she's a little shy. But don't worry, I'm here. I'm here. Arianne, you might need to adjust the lights, the light and the one in front. Yeah. So anyway, she's doing the tech support. She's my tech support. So pretty cool, pretty cool. And I think we need to adjust this camera as well. I think it's a bit low because I'm a bit taller than you. It's definitely a bit low, I think. So let me just get comfortable and adjust everything, and we will get started. Very funny when everyone said don't go, and I was actually enjoying watching on my phone Arianne on the live stream. So yes, she is beautiful.
As if it's noisy, if there's noise in the background.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so there is a bit of noise tonight, a bit of noise in the background just because there is torrential rain. We've got a huge downpour just at the minute, so lots of rain at the minute here in Subic Bay. So we've got a bit of a typhoon at the moment. And today, a few people ask, what's today's subject? Today's subject, we're looking at Thailand versus the Philippines in terms of real estate. Because what I've done is I've done the property guide series for the last month or so, and my focus has just solely been the Philippines. I've been looking at property in the Philippines, whereas now I've started this weekend the Thailand series, which will continue into the next month. So looking at the Thailand property guides and looking at real estate in Thailand. So definitely you've got to adjust the camera, Arianne. So the camera needs to come up a bit. Yeah? Yep, definitely up, and you've got to tilt it down. Yeah, sorry guys, just still adjusting the equipment. Arianne was, go up a bit more. Yep. Up. Sorry, just one more minute. So yes, today we're looking at Thailand, just up a little bit and then tilt it down. Yep. That should be a bit better. And I think you might need to tilt it down. Sorry, this is lagging. Right, so we should have a few people here. Sorry about that. Okay, so now it might be too low. There we go. There's a bit of a lag there. That's a bit better. That's better, definitely. I already had it way down here, and I wanted the camera straight at my eyes so I can look at you guys and talk to you about today's topic. So, without further ado, let's get started. Let's get started and let's talk about the topic tonight. So the topic tonight is Thailand real estate versus Philippine real estate. Which is better? And actually, I want you, the audience and the subscribers, the people watching, to actually ask questions tonight and ask me, what's better, or, have some input. Be sure to comment and say you prefer Philippines for this reason, or you prefer Thailand for this reason. So it's really a group discussion. I want you, the audience, to be a part of this live stream discussion today. And I'll be looking down a little bit at my phone to see the comments. So there is a comment from DJ, and we'll probably start with that. DJ Lassia, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So DJ is asking, can you own property as a Filipino in Thailand? And the answer is yes. However, the property you can own is limited. So similar to foreigners owning real estate in The Philippines, they're restricted as to what they can buy. So Filipinos buying in Thailand are restricted as to what they can own. Mainly what you can own are condominium units. Condominiums can be 100% legally owned in your own name in Thailand. So look, one of the big things tonight, and we're going to have to get over it, but there is heavy rain, so you might hear a bit of background noise tonight, and that's just the rain. In the Philippines, we get a very heavy, downpour during rain season. We're in the midst of rain season, in the typhoon season at the moment, so please bear with us. Hopefully it's okay. Just need some water there. How do you like the background? How is everyone this evening? Okay, well and truly we're going to kick off now. There's 21 viewers. Woo! Awesome. Very good. So let's talk about, yes, without citizenship you do not need Thai citizenship. You can be a foreign citizen, a foreign national to buy in Thailand. So let's talk about, and I'm just going to throw something out there, why would I personally buy in Thailand over the Philippines? Here is the number one reason. The number one reason why personally I think actually Thai property for me, buying condominiums, I feel is better in Thailand than it is in the Philippines. Why? Actually, it comes down to the quality. The build quality I find in Thailand is much higher standard than that of the Philippines. Often people come here and they see what is probably just like an average type condo, and I'm talking about the Philippines now, and they might just see a really kind of average condo based on the Western world and say, okay, well that condo is just average, it's shouldn't be luxury. But here in the Philippines, actually any condominium is seen almost as middle class or upper class, like you have to be rich to buy it, because a lot of people live in poverty, and that's a fact of life here, unfortunately, in the Philippines. So the quality, I would say, and the standard is definitely much higher in Thailand over the Philippines. So Thailand's probably here for build quality, and Philippines is a bit lower. The other thing too is there are some really nice developments, don't get me wrong, in the Philippines as well. For example, Yala Land Premier has some really nice builds. Shangri-La is another one. There's lots of nice, good quality developers that build a high-end product here in the Philippines. But it comes at a premium, and when I'm talking premium, I'm talking big dollars, starting from 300,000 peso per square meter. Whereas in Thailand, in places like Pattaya, you can buy a similar quality build for around about 50 to 60,000 Thai baht per square meter. So it could be 1/3 or 1/2 the price for the same standard or quality, and that's what I find. Another big developer here in the Philippines is Anchor Land. Anchor Land does build a very good and high standard as well. I just thought I'd give you that example. Now, just having a quick look, let's have a look. Sir Dino, how much for Casa James house? Sir Dino, it's not for sale, unfortunately, but the thing here in Subic Bay, and let's talk about that, and I'm going to talk about comparisons of Subic Bay versus maybe Pattaya or a Hua Hin, because the areas are quite similar. Actually, I would say Subic is very similar to probably Hua Hin, more so Hua Hin than Pattaya, whereas Angeles is probably the direct comparison to Pattaya. But look, housing here, and I just seen this evening, just tonight, actually what I saw is someone had posted one of their houses for rent here in Subic Freeport. Now the thing about Subic Freeport is there is a limited amount of houses and villas, and whereas in some place like Pattaya or Hua Hin, there's a huge amount, a surplus. So it all comes down to supply and demand. So because there's only so very, very good quality Western style homes here in Subic Bay and places like Clark Pampanga, the cost is actually up. So whether it's renting or buying, you have to pay more for the same standard that what you would have to in Thailand. So the price is probably lower in Thailand for the same standard you would pay here in Subic Bay. And that's a fact. That's absolutely a fact. Actually, tonight, coming back to my topic and what I was talking about, there was a post for a house here in Subic Freeport, and it was a nice house, but only small. It was only 2 bedrooms for rent during COVID-19, and it got listed on the local Philippine expat site, and someone had asked for 70,000 peso per month. Okay, and that got people talking. And a lot of people saying it's too expensive, it's very expensive, the price is too high, etc., etc. And I actually commented and I said, well, probably not. It's probably during COVID, a little bit too expensive, but it's not too far off the mark. They're asking about 70,000 peso per month for rent. Ultimately, what I think it's worth is probably around about 60. Okay, I think during COVID times it's worth 60, which is around about $1,200 US a month, and they were asking $1,400 for a 2-bedroom small villa in Subic Bay. That's actually not that close to the CBD. It's in Upper Kubi, but it did have nice views. And this just got people wild. All of these people commenting. Actually, a famous YouTuber came on to the listing and commented and said, that is just insane. Tell them they're dreaming. So in Australia, we do have a saying, which is tell them they're dreaming, right? I should say that in an Aussie accent. Let me try it. Tell them they're dreaming. Tell them they're dreaming, son. So they're dreaming, they're asking for way too much money. Anyway, let me have a look at these comments. Timothy says, I would not rent or buy right now. I want to stimulate economy, but it's way too risky. Okay, that is a very good point. Now, let's talk about Thailand versus the Philippines. Is Thailand risky? My answer, no. I don't think Thailand's very risky at the moment. Actually, look at the COVID cases in Thailand. The COVID cases, people were saying Thailand's going to get smashed by COVID. It's going to, fare very poorly. It's going to affect the economy. There's going to be a massive downturn in Thailand, and the currency is going to go into a free fall. Well, none of those things have occurred in Thailand, and I highly doubt that they will. Actually, places like Bangkok, property is holding its own. It's definitely holding and maintaining value. Okay, so actually in Thailand, the reason being is, yes, the market has been locked off. So places like Pattaya, prices have definitely been affected because they're reliant on things like tourism. But places like Bangkok haven't really been affected because there is no COVID in Thailand. In the last 2 months in Thailand, there haven't been any people infected or died in Thailand with COVID-19, which is a huge thing. It's similar to Taiwan and other places like China who have already recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic. So Thailand is now starting to look at reopening the doors when it comes to tourism to stimulate places like Pattaya. So I think, no, if there was a bargain to be had, it was in the last few months or in the next few months, and I think things will steadily continue to climb in Thailand. Whereas the Philippines, I do feel it's risky. I think property prices have definitely peaked in some areas, in particular my local area, like Subic Bay. Some properties have definitely peaked. We are a small town or small city, and based on our population and the economy, local economy and industry, the fundamentals that are around us here in Subic Bay, I think we've definitely peaked. I would say the same for Angeles City, and I'd say that actually Angeles City might even be worse off. Why? because with Angeles City, you got talk of will Walking Street return? What about the bars? What about the whole nightlife scene? Because a lot of expats would go to Angeles City because they want to be part of that scene, that party scene. So that's why it was popular, and a lot of expats were buying there. But to be fair, expats had always been buying there for other reasons as well. Like Clark is developing. There's a new BPO hub. There is a lot of development there. So I think, look, Clark, Angeles City could dip, whereas Thailand, places like Bangkok are quite steady and will keep stabilizing and continue to rise in prices. Pattaya, Thailand, depending on tourism and quarantine and this sort of thing, could have a bit of a dead cat bounce. Not quite sure, but it looks like property is going backwards in Pattaya, Thailand. But I'm still very bullish on both Philippines and Thailand, but you need to be very careful and selective as to where you buy. Let me just grab some water. Okay, so I'm going to answer a few more questions. One sec. Okay, so Tim has another question. Tim says, what about the peso exchange rate? Well, I think it has a way to go. I think the peso will fall, and I'm hoping, actually on my whiteboard just behind me, I've got a target for the Australian dollar. Now I'm going to change out when it hits 38 peso to 1 Australian dollar. For the American dollar, it's hard to say really, because you really need to have a hard look at your own economy and what you think is going to happen with the US dollar, and whether you think the US dollar is going to continue free falling and going down against the peso. So I think you would probably know better than I would, being an American, as I'm an Australian, not an American. So if you think America, US dollar has a way to go and will continue going down, it might actually be worth trying to change out at 50 to 1 now. What you need to look at, and one thing I will say about the currency pair being USD and Philippine peso, 50 peso to 1 American dollar is not that bad. Actually, it's pretty good. It is, historically, if you look at the last 10 or 20 years, go and look at a chart, and I'm telling you, that's towards the top end in the last 10 or 20 years. I don't know that it's going to get much better. Okay, next question. We've got a few more people watching now. Only country in the world with solid prices now is in New Zealand. Definitely New Zealand is very, very stable. They've fared extremely well during COVID-19, and they're definitely in the spotlight when it comes to their leader, who she has done an amazing job. What I will say about New Zealand, being honest and frank with you, because I do know the New Zealand market is trash, and I wouldn't buy there. I'd rather hang myself, okay? And I'm deadly serious. I'm not joking, okay? The one reason I would not buy there is because I can't use the property. I couldn't utilize it. As soon as you invest in some place like New Zealand, okay, you go and live in it for like 3 months, actually New Zealand will say that you are now a tax resident and you're liable for tax in New Zealand, even if you make overseas source income. So that's a big no-no, whereas places like the Philippines and Thailand don't tax foreigners on overseas income, which is a major plus. This is a big thing and very important for those trying to be worldly, working online and making overseas income. So personally, I love New Zealand, don't get me wrong, but I would not buy there, especially because I think it is overheated. Prices are still extremely high, regardless of the fact that the government has actually restricted and made it so that foreigners can't even buy. So foreigners can't buy in New Zealand anymore. Anyway, getting off track, just wanted to throw that in there. Right, I had to comment there. Okay. Someone said, I thought Philippines taxed on your overseas income. No, they do not. Okay, if you're, hold on, wait. Let me rephrase that. my understanding here in the Philippines, if you're a Filipino and you're an OFW, you will be taxed. However, if you're a foreigner and you're not a citizen or permanent resident of the Philippines and you make offshore income, then no, you will not be taxed. So there is a difference between being a foreigner, a foreign resident, and being a Filipino citizen or resident living in the Philippines. Having said that, whether you're foreign or local here in the Philippines, whatever income you make here, you should definitely be paying tax on. Okay, and that includes rental income. So, John says, followed Thailand since I left a couple of years ago. After 5 years living in Bangkok and Phuket, I was hoping to return, but it's just not going to happen now. John, why? Why aren't you going to return? What's the problem, buddy? So yeah, I'd like to hear your 2 cents why you are deciding not to return to Thailand. And if you're not returning to Thailand, where are you thinking of going next? Okay, so huge thing, big thing about, I was talking about quality of build, price for quality, and that if you want a quality luxury 5-star condominium, you're going to pay more in some place like the Philippines than you would Thailand. Absolutely, that's the truth. The downside on Thailand, I want to talk about the pros and the cons of both. The downside on Thailand and why a lot of people have been very, very negative on Thailand are the visas. So there's been a big push in recent years to kind of stop visas, making the easy access to Thailand, and now it's much more difficult to actually migrate to Thailand. So the answer and solution by the Thai government is what's called the Elite Program, and I'm going to need a tissue. Just hold right there. I'm going to need a tissue. 1 sec. Sorry about that. My nose was going absolutely crazy there. It's rain season and needed a tissue, needed to blow my nose off camera. So sorry about that. So, where was I? Oh my God. Hold on. So what I was talking about, man, I'm having a mental blank now. Talking about Thailand. Where was I, guys? Maybe ask a question. I was talking about something and I totally lost track. Got thrown. My apologies. Yes, I walked through the wall. I am Superman. Let's see if John's actually replied. A drop in demand leaves Bangkok with a glut of completed condos. Hence why developers are actually discounting heavily by like 30 and 40% for new stock in places like Bangkok, Thailand, which is good news, really good news if you're looking to buy a brand new condominium in Bangkok, Thailand right now. So anyway, where was I? Guys, elite visas, thank you Volatile, because guys, I just got completely thrown. So elite visas is the government's answer, and you can actually buy these elite visas. It starts from around about, without the bells and whistles, 1 million Thai baht, which is around about 33,000 US dollars is the cheapest one, and it lasts for 20 years. The other one is like the platinum package. It costs 66,000 US dollars. It's 2 million Thai baht, and that's only for one person. So if you have a family, you want to bring your wife and child, then it starts to get expensive, especially if you want the elite package. You could be up for as much as 6 million Thai baht. So that's a big negative. The other negative about visas in Thailand, and I heard this, and this actually, and I haven't actually said this on camera, and actually threw me, I could not believe it. Get this. My understanding is, even if you get the elite visa, you do this elite visa thing, right, and pay all of this money for what's supposed to be a 20-year permanent visa, apparently you still need to check in and report to immigration every 3 months. Yeah. Now, I actually found that information out in a forum most recently because I was interested in the elite program and the elite visa, and I thought I might just bite the bullet and buy one visa for myself so I can spend some time there. But in the end, what turned me off is I was told even if I lived there permanently, had the elite visa, I still have to go to immigration every 3 months. My question is, why? I mean, you paid all this money, you fork out all this money to get this elite visa. Why then do you have to go to immigration and check up? And what questions do they ask? Because apparently you go into a room with an immigration officer or something like that, they just ask you a few questions. I don't know. Maybe it is very, very simple. Maybe it says, hey, do you work? No, I'm not working because, that's not my visa. What are you doing here? I'm holidaying, I'm retiring or whatever. But, I don't like questions. And what I don't like about questions is it kind of opens up the opportunity that you say the wrong question. And that's a bit worrisome for me. So that's Thailand. Let's flick over and let's talk about the Philippines. Okay, in the Philippines, visas are easy. Okay, there was a big problem here in the Philippines because in some way the Philippines is too easy to get visas. There's retirement visas, there's tourist visas, there's long-term extension visas, there's different type of work or business visas. There are many, many options. As long as you have pera, you have some money, you can get into the country, okay, and live here permanently. There are options here in the Philippines. So that is a major plus for the Philippines and Philippine real estate. So definitely Thailand loses, Philippines wins. And this is the biggest thing of all, because if you're going to spend hundreds of thousands, possibly if you're very wealthy, millions of dollars on a property here in Southeast Asia, whether it's the Philippines or Thailand, you want to know that you can live there, because you're going to be pretty bummed out if you cannot live there and maybe just holiday there sometimes. That sucks. Okay, that really, really sucks. Philippines, yes. Thailand, unfortunately, is a no. So yes, you can get the elite visa, but the reporting every 3 months, not happy. Just saying. Anyway, okay, let's have a look here. You forgot the golden nuggets. You also need to report to immigration each time you go to another province for 24 hours. I did not know that. Thank you, Ken. Happy I left. Okay, Ken, that is extremely insightful. I don't understand why living there just to go to another province, maybe you go from Pattaya to Bangkok, you have to check in, that's crazy. That is just backward. And yeah, I would be very upset if I spent millions of Thai baht. Imagine this, you spent 6 million Thai baht for your family on the elite visa, and then, just to go drive from one city to the next, you're going to have to report in with your whole family, within 24 hours of going to that other province. That's weird, that's strange. And actually, it does remind me of something. It reminds me of mainland China. It definitely reminds me of mainland China, because when I was living in mainland China, what they'd want to do, if you're on a business visa, some kind of work visa or something like that, they would want you to check in. Now this happened, and I did live in mainland China for about 4 years, and this happened when I was leaving China. When I was starting to leave China, it was Xi Jinping had come to power. He was getting really strict with the anti-corruption and cracking down on foreigners and those that didn't have the proper, work or business visa. But, I think China actually sounds more relaxed. Yes, when you get there, you have to sign in, and when you leave, you have to sign out. Not every 3 months. But yes, it does sound a bit scary. Right. So let's have another look at questions. Wow, Capella says get a volunteer visa, 20k per year. baht, 20,000 baht per year, and pay the visa chick to do your 90-day reports. That sounds a bit sketchy to me, and I would put that in the too good to be true box. Okay, Philippines, there's many options for visas. Definitely it wins, and obviously this is the number one most important thing, the number one thing, right? Because if you don't feel safe, if you don't think you can even get into the country, even right now with COVID, of course, people are restricted from getting in. Now, if you owned a property and you couldn't get to your home, that's a very disheartening thing. It's not good, right? So it is worrisome if you can't get the right visa, especially when you spend and have to spend so much money, on the elite visa. Obviously, there is the retirement visa, but my understanding is the retirement visa, if you're over 50 in Thailand, has become a lot more strict. Okay, so let's get back to the property discussion and talking about property and the pros and cons versus Philippines and Thailand. Okay, I'm going to give a free kick to Thailand. And what I'm going to talk about for Thailand is the fact that property ownership is cheaper in Thailand than the Philippines. Yes, you heard me right. Now, I'm going to talk from an owner-occupied perspective, someone that's owned homes in both Thailand and the Philippines. I'm going to talk from this perspective just for a minute. So, in the Philippines, actually the biggest thing, electricity is extremely expensive. Honestly speaking, it is 3 times the price, right? It's 3 times as expensive as Thailand. So my bill for a small condo in Manila is around about, used to be an average of about $150 US a month. Whereas my bill in Thailand for a month to stay there actually was only about $30 to $40 US a month for electricity. The other thing is the same condo in Manila, the dues cost me around about 6,000 per month, which is about 120 US dollars per month in the Philippines. And in Thailand, I think it cost me around about 30 something dollars a month. So big difference. Again, the dues, the electricity, a lot of the costs, the ongoing costs of holding the property was actually far less expensive in Thailand versus the Philippines. So Thailand does have some huge advantages. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. So yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to add. So John says, is electricity unreliable in the Philippines? Well, John, it depends where you live. If you're living in a major place, like a major city like Manila, it's reliable as long as you're in a major suburb. If you're on the outskirts, it might be a problem. If you're in Ortigas, Makati, BGC, if you're in the center, it's not a problem. Even some of these buildings have backup power generators and this sort of thing. It's not an issue and it is reliable. However, if you're living on some island or remote place here in the Philippines, it is unreliable. Good example, Boracay Island. My friend actually lived on Boracay Island. He was telling me that he would have 10 brownouts a month, and sometimes they would have blackouts that would last days, sometimes even weeks on Boracay Island, because it is an island. Storms happen, power lines come down. Even here in Subic, we have had power down. I will say the good thing about Subic Bay, the services here are really good. We've had a number of times, probably 3 or 4 times since I've lived here, we've had power outages because of wind and storms, like rain season, like the rain you can hear here has blown over power poles and the power's gone down. Literally, like a snap of the fingers, within 8 to 12 hours, the crews come out, Enerzone or the local electricity companies come out, fixed it, and power back on. So here in Subic Bay, fantastic. Manila, also great. But islands, places like Bantayan Island, even Bohol, Boracay, could be a serious problem. It just depends how remote and how close to the city you actually are. Alright, more questions. So yes, electricity is ridiculous. Someone said, electricity prices in the Philippines are crazy. Yes, that's right. Yes, they are. Someone said, Christino said, I want a condo with super solar panel for free electricity. Well, keep dreaming, because you're not going to be able to do that with a condo. Very, very hard to do that. Not sure how you're going to do that with a condo, mate. Maybe in the future they'll be able to do that, but I don't think that's possible right now. It is, however, possible if you build your own house and you wanted to have solar power. That's definitely possible. My neighbor here is doing just that right now as we speak. So let's keep looking at the questions. I think you've been able to do that for a while. It says, good tip for Thailand. You can now, a foreigner, get a 30-year rental on land. So he's talking about 30-year lease. Build on it and own the bricks but never the land. You can extend it for 30 years. So my understanding is you can not really own it. It's similar to Subic Bay, where you can have a lease agreement. Also be careful, because I looked into this and I was considering highly to get a leasehold property in Thailand. But when I looked at it, actually my understanding is leasehold, when you lease and you have a contract, there is some kind of fee that you have to pay for the government. And if you underestimate what the rental or the lease is, the government can come in and say, no, this is the fee, and actually charge a substantial amount per annum in fees to obtain that leasehold property. Whereas here in the Philippines, you don't have that issue. Look that up. I did do some research, and that's what I found, John. So yeah, definitely look that up. I can't remember what the rate was, but it was actually quite high, because from memory it was like based on the property value. So if the property value was 10 million Thai baht and it was a nice house on the beach or something in a nice location, maybe it was 1 or 2% per annum, which is actually a hefty fee, per annum. It was something like that. I can't remember exactly, but just saying. Okay, next question. Josh says, explain the difference between owning a condo and you can't own a house. Hold on. Explain the difference between owning a condo and owning a house. So, okay, Josh, I get what you're saying. What Josh is trying to say is, as a foreigner in the Philippines and Thailand, you cannot legally own a freehold, fee simple title and lot. Okay, so this house, people have asked me many times, how do you own it? I have a leasehold title that started at 50 years, so I can have it for 50 years in my own personal name. Like we're talking about leasehold, you can have in Thailand up to 30-year leasehold. But you can't just go out of places like Subic Freeport and just buy freehold land. You cannot do that because it is not legal. Actually, the law here in the Philippines states that it is illegal for foreigners to own house and land. It's illegal, right? Leasing is legal. Owning is not legal. Now, it's the same thing for Thailand, so it's really a zero-sum game. You can't own a house legally, but I can. I can in a roundabout way. For someone like me who has a partner here who's a Filipina and has my son, I could technically buy in Arianne's name. I probably wouldn't do that. I'd be more inclined to buy in my son's name. So I can buy in my son's name and then be the legal guardian who has control of that property until he is of legal age. So, once he reaches 21 years of age, in 21 years, I explained that actually I bought that house for him. Now, I'm happy to do that personally for my son, because I love my son, and it ends up with him anyway. That's fine with me. But if you don't have a family in Thailand or the Philippines, yes, it can be very difficult. Your two options are leasing land or leasing a house and land, or buying a condominium. So you can own 100% in your own name a condominium in both Thailand and the Philippines. Yes, that's legal. And that's why a lot of foreigners are opting to buy condos over everything else. It's also the reason that you'll see a lot of my property guide videos like the ones I did today and yesterday all about condos. The main property type that I look for is definitely condos that can be owned by foreigners, because yes, it comes at a premium. Yes, it does. But what I like about condos is you can buy and sell. A foreigner can buy it and sell it to a foreigner, so the value is higher. Okay, so that's why a lot of some condominiums actually cost more than some houses do here in the Philippines and both Thailand as well. Yeah. All right, next question. Yeah, you don't need to set up a company. People are talking about company, right? No, you cannot own land. Josh is correct. You cannot own land. You can lease land. You cannot own land, okay? Josh, I don't need a lawyer. I write all my contractual agreements. Okay, Christina says, so when you have 1 year left on your leasehold, do you burn down the property so the government doesn't keep it? Christina, no, why would you do that? Technically, I don't own it. Technically, the house, the bricks and mortar around me that you see, the government owns it. So if you burnt it down, that could be a crime. I would not recommend that anyone does that. When there's 1 year left on the lease, you can actually go to the government here in Subic Bay or Clark Pampanga, where you can get leasehold land in the Philippines, and you can request to extend your lease for a further 25 years, for a fee of course. So that's what people do, and I see people doing this all the time. They get a lease and maybe it's getting low, there's only 5 years left on the lease, so they go down to the land department and they say, I'll give you $50,000 for another 25 years. Now when you actually calculate that, $50,000 over a period of 25 years is only $2,000 a year. My rates, my council rates, my fees and charges in Australia, just rates alone would cost double that. So there you go. Alright, so next. Wilbur says, if you can buy a condo in Thailand, then later in life you sell the condo, can you return the money for the sale of your condo to your home country, e.g. Australia? Wilbur, that is a very complex question. The short answer is yes, but it is very, very complicated, and I've heard stories of people having issues selling property, trying to cash out and take money out of both the Philippines and Thailand without good reason. Okay, especially in Thailand. I've heard Thailand is very, very complicated to get money out. I've heard stories of people like taking cash out, right, putting it in the safe, doing a lot of trips back to their own country, exchanging the money and taking back, the legal amount of cash every time they go back to the country. So I've heard of things like that happening to try and circumvent these, draconian laws, right? But anyway, if you're investing millions of dollars, that might not be possible. If you're investing 50 grand, 100 grand, that's probably possible. Okay, I'm not saying to do that. Please don't do that. I'm just saying that people have done, and I've known people do things like that to try and get money out of the country. Yes, it's very complicated, and you need government approval. Okay, so more questions. Christina, yeah, you want them to be good mates. You want them to be good friends because you don't want them to run off with your money. That would not be good, mate. Not be good at all. Okay, any further questions? So we talk about expenses and property expenses being, definitely more expensive in the Philippines and Thailand. I want to also talk about opportunity. I think for foreigners, there is more opportunity in the Philippines, and I think that's because Filipinos are more welcoming to foreigners in this market space than Thais are to foreigners. The other thing too in Thailand is you have a local price for a Thai or company title, so a Thai title, and you have a foreign price, which is called a foreign quota, a foreign title. So actually, let's say you're buying in a condominium in Thailand and it's a 50-story building, it's a huge building, and you're buying, there's a Thai and he's buying the exact same condominium, 50 square meters. Here, you're buying the condo next door for 50 square meter. The Thai might only have to pay 2 million Thai baht, but you have to pay 3 million Thai baht because your title is a foreign quoted title. You're a foreigner. You have to pay a penalty. Ultimately, that money goes in like stamp duties and things to the government. They are fees. Now, that's a bad thing because it's more expensive. You pay more than what Thais do, which is really unfair. Now, it's a bad thing, but it's also a good thing because you maintain a foreign quota title. So that means when you sell it, that title is worth more. So obviously Thai titles and company titles, I often see, and you've got to be really careful, some, I've seen some Russian companies do this in Pattaya, where they're trying to sell Thai titles and company titles and say, oh look, this condo's a really good price, it's a very good price, buy this one, buy it. Oh, it's okay that it's in a company title, just set up the company. Hey, I already have a company, I have the lawyer, we'll do it for you. Beware a lot of scams. I actually know a story where someone did that and they contacted me because they did that, and they took this free company, they bought the property, and then they used the company to take the property back off him. So I actually got ripped off for about $150 and ended up with nothing. Be very careful. Buy in your own name. Don't buy in a company name. Don't buy in a Thai title if you're not Thai. Okay, just saying. Okay. Nico says, I would never buy in Thailand. Thai girls are too risky. That's a good point. I definitely feel safer with a Filipina. I've dated both Thai and Filipina, and I feel safer. I do feel safer dating a Filipina than I would a Thai. I'm not going to lie. Jeff says, I say renting in both locations is the answer, as you can move every time. Visa due to new locations. So Jeff, look, there is definitely an argument that, rent not buy. There's definitely a strong argument for that. But the argument against that is, property prices have gone up a lot. And it's not just property prices, but rental prices. I mean, a good example, and I think you'll know the area that I'm talking about, is Rockwell, Makati, and also BGC, where, God, wow, just prices for rentals have skyrocketed over the years. I remember back in the day you could get a nice 2-bedroom condo for 30 to 40,000 peso per month, whereas now a nice 2-bedroom condo in Rockwell would cost you probably 100,000 peso per month or more. That's $2,000 a month, and not everyone has a retirement or pension fund to be able to fund and rent for $2,000 a month. Ultimately, they would have to opt for something a bit cheaper. So, it's about getting a foothold on the market. And yes, absolutely, I wish I bought in Rockwell, quite a few years ago now, 5 or 10 years ago, when it was still around 100,000 peso per square meter, because some of the condos there, wow, they're 300,000 peso per square meter plus. They've tripled. They've tripled in value in the last 5 or 6 years. Tripled. It's insane. All right. Yeah, Razor Garf says you don't want to move around forever. That's right. You want to be comfortable. You want to get settled down. Definitely, I love the Philippines. This is my base. This is my home. It's my home away from home, my second home, you could say. And I obviously then travel and spend time in other countries. I like it because of visas for everything all around. I think Philippines is definitely a winner. But I also think Thailand, although there's some negatives, although there's issues with the government towards foreigners, there's issues around visas, it's still an extremely popular place to live. And personally, I love the country. I love Thailand. I love the culture. I love the food. I love the quality of build you can get there. I love the fact that also, again, coming back to my example tonight, that rent is still really, really cheap in Thailand. Actually, in Thailand, the argument is more so to rent in Thailand and buy in Philippines. If anything, I'm probably in agreement to that. I'd say the Philippines, you're better off buying, to be honest. Whereas Thailand, in some areas, depending on the area, right, you're better off renting, right? So it depends on the area in Thailand as well. But in a lot of locations nowadays, rent is still very, very cheap in Thailand. Whereas I don't know why. There are many reasons why, but Philippines is very expensive nowadays when it comes to renting a decent condominium or house. Like houses in Manila, like forget about it. If you want to be near the CBD, near work, you need 200,000 to 300,000 peso per month. You're talking, 4, 5, 6,000 US dollars a month to rent a small house in Manila. Right, that's just how it is. Whereas Thailand, you can rent a house for $1,000, maybe $1,500 a month. That's not too far out from the city and has good transport links. Whereas the Philippines, you don't have that, and you need to be close to work because the transport sucks. Traffic is an absolute nightmare, and public transport, well, let's face it, it's still developing, and at this current point in time, it sucks. Yeah. All right. Daddy says rent. Angelo Jello says Philippines. John says Cristino sounds like you need a suitcase. Not sure what he's referring to there. Cristino says I just need a cheap storage place to leave my clothes when I travel. Yeah, you just need a suitcase, mate. I agree with that. Actually, there's places at the airport where you can pay to leave your suitcase. And when I travel, sometimes I've done that. Like I've stayed up, maybe it's only a 20-hour visit, and I haven't booked a hotel to save money. I've just stayed out all night. Was doing that in my younger years, but I don't think I'll be doing that much now. Getting a bit older now. Okay, so John says, if you want a cheap condo, great bars, and a taste of real Thailand, try Ban Chang. It's not far from Pattaya, near Utopia. I don't think that's how, you spelled it wrong, John. Near the airport, so Rayong province. Okay, so Ban Chang. I will try that. I haven't been to Ban Chang. I'll be honest, all the negativity aside, everything aside, I still would love to live in Bangkok. It's kind of been a dream of mine. I've lived there, for a very short space of time. I spent a lot of time holidaying in Bangkok. I've never owned anything in Bangkok, and I haven't lived there long term. So I think, my goal is, at the moment, I've got a vision board and I've got some goals written up on my whiteboard there. My goal at the moment, I'm leaning towards Bangkok, and fluctuating my time between the Philippines and Thailand, and probably Bangkok and maybe Manila if I have to for work reasons. Oh, there's some moth there. Jesus. Right. Like moth attack. Moth attack. Okay, last questions, guys. Nico says most girls view you as an ATM. Be careful, guys. That's a bit true in some ways. Let me just put this seat up a bit. There we go. That's a bit better. I should have adjusted that ages ago. Get some height. Okay, so Christina says Bangkok, great city life. Yes, great public transport. Christina also says Manila traffic is a killer. Actually, Manila as a city, I really love Manila, but yes, it's just the traffic and the lack of good infrastructure and public transport. That's the issue. And that's the main issue. Actually, I need some holder so I can hold my phone just there and read your comments and look straight at the camera. It's really quite frustrating because I can't see your comments there. You're welcome, Josh. Very welcome. Okay, last questions. We're going to go for the next 10 minutes or so, probably 5 or 10 minutes. Last questions about property, real estate. I want it to be real estate questions, please. We've got a bit off topic talking about Philippines and Thailand, but let's try and stick to real estate questions. Why would you buy in Thailand versus the Philippines? Aha, I just thought of one. Why would you buy in the Philippines if you want to Airbnb? Airbnb is still legal here in the Philippines, but you need to be careful because in the Philippines there are restrictions, like certain buildings. What I experienced is they restrict and stopped you and change the bylaws, the condo bylaws, from actually doing Airbnb. So it depends building to building. If you're buying condos, obviously if you own a house, you can Airbnb it, no problem. That's great. Whereas Thailand, you cannot. So Airbnb in Thailand, weekly, daily stays is illegal. It's been outlawed, and actually it's a criminal offense. You could be jailed. You could be deported. It's not a good thing. You're gonna have a bad time. However, there is a loophole that people have found in Thailand, right? And with Airbnb, you can Airbnb if, on one condition, it is a month stay or more. So you can actually book monthlies. You can do monthly stays in Thailand with your condominium or property in Thailand, whereas you do not have that restriction in the Philippines. Okay, so definitely Philippines wins when it comes to Airbnb, because most people booking Airbnb just want to book for a couple of days, maybe a week. Actually, the percentage of people looking to book for the month, a whole month or more, is very low, very small market. Okay, and lots of competition because there's so many buildings in Thailand. But that's the other thing. Okay, plus for Thailand, thumbs up for Thailand. You have more choices. You have better quality. You have so many buildings in a place like Bangkok. Or Pattaya. Pattaya is a really good example where there is an oversupply, and now, because there's an oversupply and a very small demand, you can rent extremely cheaply. You can rent like a 1-bedroom, 5-star condo very close to the beach in Pattaya with amazing views for as cheap as like 300 to 400 American per month. I've heard some stories during this current crisis, this pandemic, where people are renting condos as cheap as like $200 a month. So we're talking like 6,000-7,000 Thai baht just to pay the bills, the maintenance bills of the condo during pandemic. They're discounting heavily by like 50% plus to rent condominiums in Thailand right now. Whereas, the Philippines, it just seems like there is never enough. There always just seems like, because I guess it's just a growing population, that there's always this massive, hungry demand. And even in COVID, there's always a demand here in the Philippines. And this comes back to my example at the start of the night, talking about this property here in Subic Bay, a 2-bedroom villa overlooking the bay. And yes, it had a great view, but they wanted 70,000 peso per month, and people are saying that's too much. Well, it's not too much if someone will pay it. And the truth is, here in Subic Bay or Angeles City, we have a very, very small supply. So it comes down to supply. So a small supply and a huge demand for people wanting to live here. So I would say on the supply and demand side, actually Philippines wins, because there's more of a demand than supply if you're an investor. But Thailand wins if you're a renter, because you can rent really cheaply and get a really good deal. If you want to rent a condo in Thailand. Also, if you want to buy, because It really is a buyer's market. You can get these discounts, heavy discounts, because some owners bought just to rent as an investment and they were hoping to make money and they haven't made money. So if you wanted to buy a nice condo as an owner-occupied home, you can do that. So there's pros and cons for both, actually. Okay, escaping Rutlantis. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And you've said something. Let me just read this. What's the place where they screech "Farang, Farang" in a sharp voice? I never want to go there again. I think you just wanted me to say Farang, Farang. It's actually F-A-R-A-N-G, Farang. That is Thailand. So, you Farang, you foreigner, you foreigner. And yes, that happens. You might be passing a Thai massage shop in Thailand. They want to give you a back massage and try and earn 200 baht off your back massage. And Farang, come here, Farang. Right, so that is in Thailand. Okay, horizontal decline says it's more beneficial for me to rent rather than buy in Thailand. Horizontal decline, I would agree in a lot of circumstances it's better to rent than buy in Thailand, especially right now. But I think long term things will change again in Thailand. Previously it was a great place to buy, it was an awesome place to buy. You could Airbnb, you could have really good rental income, visas were good. I think it's just the current regime and how things are now. The problem is it could be a long time before it shifts back, so it is very risky buying there. For someone like me, I'm kind of really not wanting to go back to Australia. My base is here in Asia, and I'm still wanting to buy in Thailand, despite all the problems. Okay, so fellow traveller says, you tricked me with the thumbnail. But let me explain. Fellow traveller, you came late. Arianne was actually doing the tech support and setting up for us here on the vlog tonight. She was actually setting up, and that's why when the live stream actually started, it took a picture of Arianne. I haven't even seen the picture yet, so you've probably seen a pretty girl and then seen this cowboy face and wondered, hey, what's going on? Alright, so very last questions. I'm definitely going to wrap up. It's late, it's a Sunday. I need to rest and I need to have some dinner. It's almost 9 o'clock. Alright, last questions, guys. Remember to share and give me a thumbs up, please. Alright. Oh, seat just broke there. It's funny. Very funny. I'm a bit tired. I wanted to get this live stream done because I had said that I would be doing more live streams and people had asked for it, so definitely going to do that. My seat almost broke. They're kind of funny. Got my feet up on the stool here now, so I'm wrapping up. Horizontal decline, I am still going to Thailand, but as I said, I'm going to have a healthy balance, and I'm going to spend maybe half my time in Thailand, half my time in Philippines, so I can still see my son. At this current point in time, it's still on the cards. Yes, it is. Oh wow, I'm like cut off from the screen. There we go, I'm back. Okay, Sebastian says Peak do a lot sale in Bataan. So you're saying to buy a lot in Bataan? I might do that. Okay. Alright, Jay says, can you recommend me taking girl back to Condo, or should I buy a new one and take them there? Jay, depends on the girl. If you trust the girl, then I don't see why not. Why you wouldn't just take her back to your own condo rather than renting a hotel for the night. I don't see why not. Obviously, safety measures like have her safe. have a safe, lock your good things in there, maybe a key lock, something like that. Just be safe and be careful, don't leave, large amounts of cash and keys and that sort of thing out in the open. Okay. Nico says, Pete, I think you look a bit like Andre Agassi. I think it's just this new camera, mate. We've got this new camera. We're setting it up, and Arianne had a hard time getting this all set up. Actually, she had the camera down here. I was like, I didn't like that. It was kind of facing up to my chin. It didn't look real great. So I'm going to have to play with it and get like the right, position for it, this sort of thing. I think she still has it a bit low. I want it a bit higher to get more of me in the picture. But anyway, I'll play with it, trying to get some new equipment, just trying to level up when it comes to vlogging, and just get better. Alright, so last question. Oh, Escaping, thank you so much. Escaping has a question. So last question. Escaping says, what do you think of Thailand? Visas, property prices, etc. Chiang Mai looks like good value, or is Vietnam better? Okay, so I think Thailand is great. Thailand, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years has had some issues around several things. I think it's the change in regime, definitely the visas. We talked about earlier the visas in the video, and I did touch on the fact that visas are a huge problem. And it's not just visas, it's the visas and having to report every 3 months. And what I said earlier in the video is actually Philippines wins for visas, whereas Thailand is a thumbs down and loses when it comes to visas. And a lot of people are very angry when it comes to expats about the visa and the 3 monthly reporting with immigration scenario in Thailand, which doesn't seem to be very fair, especially when a lot of people are buying their visa via the Thai Elite program. The other thing, I still like Thailand. I'm still very bullish on Thailand. I think the best place to buy property in Thailand are 2 places. My favorites are Bangkok and Pattaya. Unfortunately though, Bangkok is quite expensive. If you want bang for buck and good value, go for Pattaya. Actually, on my whiteboard here, I have a target price per square meter, so I'm going to let you in on a secret. My target for a 5-star building, a nice condo within the last 5 to 6 years being built, it could be from 2020 to 2015. My price for Thailand is 85,000 Thai baht for Bangkok, Thailand, which 85,000, that's my target for Bangkok if you're looking to buy. My target for Pattaya is 44,000 Thai baht per square meter. So Bangkok, 85,000 Thai baht per square meter, and Pattaya is 44,000 Thai baht per square meter. Actually, myself and a friend of mine, and I hope you're watching, Kay. Kay, I hope you're well, buddy. We're keen to get to Thailand and start reinvesting in Thailand and try and get some deals in the midst of this pandemic. I think where you're going to find the good deals is going to be Pattaya. Bangkok's definitely holding its value when it comes to property, whereas as Pattaya, because it's dependent on tourism, and holidays, the property prices have started to drop. So definitely you can get a good price there in Pattaya, much better price in Pattaya over Bangkok. Having said that, you will still find deals in Bangkok. Also, Bangkok has some really good developer discounts, 20-30% off discounts. I've even seen some developers discount as much as 40%, but that was a very high-end property and they were charging huge money, like 300,000 Thai baht, and discounting down to like 180,000 Thai baht per square meter. It was an extremely high-end 5-star, what they call a 6-star condo development. So that gives you some insight about Thailand property. Maybe rewatch the start of it as well when we were talking a bit more about Thai property also. Okay, let me have a look. Mark says hot girls in Thailand. NASA, I'm not going to repeat that. Yeah, each to their own, NASA, each to their own. Okay, Mickelson has something interesting to say. We're going to extend for 5 minutes because of the super chat. Escaping gave me the super chat, so I'm going to extend a little while. I was going to wrap up. We're going to go for another 5 minutes. So where was I? The chat just went down. Mickelson says, Vietnam visas are relatively easy, but after 50 years, the communist government gets your condo and they kick you out as they like. Not a lot of freedom in that sense. So what he's talking about, he's talking about Vietnam. In Vietnam, everyone, whether it's a foreigner or a local, can buy property, but it's on a 50-year leasehold scheme. So you can buy a property in Vietnam, a condo or a villa, could be a house and land, but it's on leasehold because it's a communist lease. The same thing happens in China. I think it's like, I don't think it's as much as 90 years. I think it's like 80 years, maybe it's 60 years, I forget for China. But yeah, I believe it's a 50-year lease in Vietnam. So that's popular with some foreigners that went to some places like Da Nang and could buy a house on a 50-year lease. Really, really cool. But what I have heard in Vietnam is prices have already skyrocketed since they opened up the market to foreign ownership several years ago. I think it was only like 2 or 3 years ago where actually the Vietnamese government made it legal for foreigners to actually own leasehold property, the same as locals, have the same rights as locals in Vietnam, which is very interesting. And yes, properties did skyrocket at that time. Keep in mind, it's not just Vietnam doing that. You know, here in the Philippines, I'm on a leasehold. In Subic Bay, I actually have a leasehold. I got a 50-year lease on the villa that I'm in right now. Okay, and you can do that in Clark, Pampanga, and other places like other free ports in the Philippines too, directly to the government. Yes, so Gia says the background is outside raining. It is heavy rain here. It's typhoon season here in the Philippines. Yes, it is. Alright, let me have a look here. So last questions. Google says nice rain sound. Yeah, sorry about the sound. I can't help it. It's very, very heavy. I actually had to move my car because my car was under the tree. I had to move my cars up the road, so you know, if the tree comes down or a branch comes down, it doesn't hit my car. Mark says bit rough in Angeles City. Yep, that's true. Paul says what's going on in Angeles City? Lots going on in Angeles City. Crime has definitely increased. I've heard definitely crime has increased. I've definitely heard that it's gone back into a hard lockdown, so I can't even get to Angeles City. I think it was only 2 weeks ago I could actually travel there, but I can't even go there. It's gone back into a lockdown. Manila, Metro Manila has also gone back into lockdown also. Yes, it has. Carl says rain on a hot tin roof. Quite literally, yes, it is. Yeah, actually, you know what? It's really funny here. You know, we get what looks like fog. It's not really fog. It gets hot here. It gets quite humid. So when it's nice and warm here in the Philippines and it rains, especially if I go out and have a look at the road now, that hot tarmac, you know, will be steaming because the rain comes down and it steams up and the hot air rises. So it looks like fog, but it's just the humidity. But it's kind of cool. Kind of eerie feel sometimes when you're out in the mist. Can be dangerous sometimes on the road. Actually, I've driven late at night in the rain, and it's really hard to drive sometimes when you're driving through the rain and the fog. Can you imagine that? And the fog from the humidity, from the heat from the tarmac, etc. It can be really hard when the window's fogging up and it's just heavily raining in rain season. And it used to annoy me because, you know, now I'm getting to work from home, but before I would have to commute back to Manila and travel, and that was often a pain, huge pain. Okay, very last question. One last question. I think it is a typhoon. So Paul says, is that a typhoon? I'm not going to count that as a question. I'm looking for a property question, please, and thank you. Actually, the quality of this camera is quite good. You can't see much green, which I guess is the positive, whereas the other camera the other day, I think you saw a bit of green outline. But any last questions, please? One last question, and then I'm going to say goodbye and good night. Alright, haven't seen any last questions yet. Let's wait. Need some water. Okay, we have a question. Katrina says, what do you think of the Kamaya Coast development in Bataan? Okay, Katrina, I think it's a bit far from everything. Now, I looked at the Kamaya Coast, but it is kind of a bit far from everything. And what's important to me when I buy an investment, or even when I'm buying to live, I want to buy somewhere where there's fundamentals. The problem with Kamaya Coast, it's kind of out of the way. Where's the supermarket? Where are the schools? Where are the fundamentals? And the important things that come with property ownership are those fundamentals. Because you don't have the good infrastructure, you don't have all those good things, schools. How are people going to live there? So ultimately, a place like in Kamaya Coast is, really only for holidays. So it's a holiday village, I could say. So not many people would live there permanently, and that's the issue that I personally have with the development. Okay, it's a nice development if you're wealthy and you want a holiday home and a nice home to holiday in sometimes, then it might be worthwhile. There are now solutions for those wanting to do Airbnb, and a good solution actually we talked about at the PropTech Forum, so trying to show you the positive as well, is actually these digital locks. So maybe you're not even there and someone can check in and log in themselves, but then you would still need to have someone to come into the property and clean it. And how do you do that? Maybe you can find someone locally. So yeah, there are ways to try and have a holiday house and get an Airbnb rental, so use it sometimes and Airbnb it. That is a possibility. But I personally feel if I'm buying, I want to be buying in a place that's going to have sure capital growth. And where you're going to find capital growth is in cities or places or growing, developing townships or cities that have fundamentals, schools, roads, everything, malls, shopping, supermarket, you name it, you've got it. As long as you've got that, the key fundamentals, you're good. Yeah. Alright, one last question. I know I said one last one. Paul says, I see you started early. Too bad I just woke up here in North America. Paul, if you've got a question, feel free to ask it. I will answer. Carl says, have you checked out Porto Galera? Yes, I have. I've been there a couple of times. Porto Galera is quite nice. The thing about places like Porto Galera, Boracay, and some of these beautiful places, islands and coves, actually a lot of them cannot legally be titled. I think it's Proclamation 1801 by Ferdinand Marcos, the ex-president, who bring out the proclamation whereby you cannot own. So you can't get a title deed. You can only get a tax declaration. So that's a bit risky to buy in places like Porto Galera, and that's my issue. For me, I want a title deed if I'm buying. If I can't get a clean title deed, I will not buy. Paul says, I have a condo in Angeles City near SM Clark if you're interested. Absolutely, Paul. That does sound interesting indeed. So look, if you're looking to sell, there might be other people interested in your condo too. Maybe what you could do is leave your details in the comments section of this video, and we will reach out to you about your condo for sale. Okay, Jeff says, what type of camera? And this is going to be the last question. I don't know the model number. Actually, the IT department that I work for helped me source the camera. But actually, it's a Logitech. It's a little Logitech camera. What I found is it's actually quite good because the last camera that I had, I was just using the laptop camera, and I had to put something underneath, couldn't position it very well, which is a downside, but also it had a green outline, a bit of a green outline. Jeff, if you want to reach out to me on Facebook, I'll find out the model number for you and let you know. Wow, Escaping, thank you so much. I was just about to wrap up. I'm going to extend again, one more question. Escaping says, I'm stuck in Australia working at an iron ore mine, dreaming about going overseas. Plan is to grab cheap studios in Asia, Europe and America. Escaping, that is an awesome dream. What I would say is I had a similar dream, and I wanted to have a couple of studio condos all over the world. But what I found is after traveling for a long time, I got a bit tired, and also you got to think about the distances between Australia, North America and Asia. What I would say is be very savvy, negotiate hard, try and find opportunities when the Australian currency is high. Now I'm assuming you're in Australia, just by some of your comments. Okay, stuck in Australia. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. So wait for the currency to fluctuate up a bit. It is going our way. I think we've got to 35 point something on the peso. I think Philippines is a great opportunity. Thailand's great. The other place that's really good that I love is on my list is Cambodia, well worth looking at. I think North America is very expensive, but you can find opportunities there. Why I'm negative probably on North America is property taxes, very much like Australia, lots of land tax or property taxes, which is really annoying. Canada I was looking at buying in, but they restricted foreigners from foreign ownership, so you had to pay huge stamp duties, like 20% stamp duties in places like Canada, and I was going to move there several years ago. So personally, I ended up deciding I like Asia. And the good thing about Asia is, I can get, well, not right now, but soon I can get a flight from, Thailand to the Philippines, only 2.5 hours on a plane, 3 hours to Japan, an hour on the plane, about an hour and 15 minutes to Macau, to China, etc., which is really cool, and explore Asia. There's a lot to explore here, a lot to do. I'm sorry you're on lockdown, mate. Escaping, I hope you can find some fun. I'm sure it's stressful, you need to relax and you need a holiday, absolutely. And mate, I hope all the best. Focus up, knuckle down, focus on your dream, get back in the mind, make some coin, make some money, brother. And mate, when you're ready and the time comes, go on a holiday and buy something nice. Remember to negotiate, remember to barter. Okay, so last questions. You know what? Oh, Paul asked a question. I am going to extend a little bit. Thank you so much for your super chats. So I am extending a little bit, going a bit over time. I might skip dinner tonight. I probably do need to skip dinner anyway, right? So Paul says, I wish you had started later. Keep up the great work. I live in Canada, and trust me, it's very expensive here, especially with Aussie exchange rate to Canada. Absolutely. I love Canada as a country. I think it's a great place. I actually, like I was talking about Canada earlier, I wanted to move to Vancouver before I moved back to Asia. So I spent some time living in China. After China, I was highly considering moving to North America or Canada, and my preference was Canada, and I had saved a lot of money, worked very, very hard, and I wanted to buy something. And I had my heart set on Vancouver. Unfortunately, because a lot of mainland Chinese did the rush in Vancouver, now stamp duty for foreigners went from, I think it was 10 or 15%, now it's 20%, For foreigners, it's crazy, so I can forget Canada. Also, just the property taxes, fees, everything. It's just not worth it. It's very similar to Australia. I probably guess that Canada is even worse than Australia in regards to costs. Oh, another moth there. In regards to costs and expenses. But I am looking forward when this lockdown finally ends that I can finally visit Canada, because I do love the country. So I'll just be sticking to visiting and Airbnb. I highly doubt I'll be buying any property there. Yeah, I believe you, mate. Very expensive. Yes. Yeah, I've been there a couple of times, Paul. I do really love Vancouver. Actually, I used to be a lot fitter than I am now. I used to do a lot of snowboarding and go to Whistler. I went twice to Whistler. I've been to Japan several times. Where I used to go the most for snowboarding is in Queenstown, because it's so close to Australia. It's only a 3-hour flight. Queenstown, New Zealand. But like I said, I love Vancouver. But now that I have my son, I think it's just impossible. Just impossible. I won't be able to ever live there. I can't see it happening. I think we'll only be visiting long term. I think it's a dream of mine that unfortunately died. Yeah, a bit sad there. Yeah. So yeah, yes, Vancouver's very expensive, and I started to look at other places, and the place I was actually looking at was Calgary. And I thought, hey, why not check out like Calgary or something like that? That might be an opportunity because they don't have the foreign stamp duties. So maybe there's a little glimmer of hope. But I think, honestly, if I'm going to spend that big money, I'd rather go back to Australia where there's a bit of a warm climate and be closer to my family. So yeah, I personally like Asia Pacific, and I've kind of chosen this is my region, this is where I'm going to stay, but I hope I get to holiday there soon. Alright, yes, Banff. Oh man, you're killing me. Like, is anyone watching this going, oh, I'm dying, I want to travel, I just want to get out of the house, go snowboarding, go to Japan, eat some Japanese food, Thailand, go partying at Nana. Yeah, that would be fun. So I think we're all going a bit stir crazy. Actually, I went to a lunch today with some friends, and it was actually a birthday party of my neighbours, and he was saying he reckons that I was saying, look, it probably is going to be another 6 to 12 months on the bad side, 12 months of lockdown before we can fly again, unfortunately. And he seemed to think it was going to be years, like 2 or 3 years. And I thought, well, geez, I hope that's not the case. I'd hate to be stuck in the one place for years. But I think he was being a bit over the top. I think, look, yes, knuckle down, remain positive, save some money for your holidays, and focus on your dreams. Because I think in 6 to 12 months, things will start to reopen again, and we will go back to normal, not new normal. At least let's pray that does happen. Alright, so we got a few comments, and so the first comment was, Escaping says, nice, I'm mostly in physical silver and chain link. Right, Cimendo, I've never heard of that one. Looks like it will be huge in 5 years. Okay, I'll have a look at Cimendo. Escaping. Cimendo, too much risk. So I need to look at what Cimendo is. Jeff says, when are you hoping to come to, I think you mean to write Manila. I was hoping, actually, I should have gone sooner to come visit you, mate. I really should have. But now I think with the travel passes, the 14-day quarantine just to go from Subic to Manila, I'm going to wait until the lockdown ends before I come. But as soon as it ends, rest assured, mate, I will take you up on your offer, Jeff. And I know you got that condo there, so mate, I might take you up on that offer when this bloody lockdown ends, because I need a bit of a holiday, and I wouldn't mind going and checking out Manila and saying, g'day, Jeff. Awesome. Yes, gold's doing very, very well. Silver also, Mark. Absolutely. Yeah, pray for normal, not new normal. Google sucks, says. I shouldn't say that. You're making me say that. I'm just going to say Google. Anyway, I'm getting tired. It's almost 9:30. Getting really, really tired. It's been a long day. Actually, even though it's Sunday, I started at 7 a.m. My dog was scratching at the door, Quirky, and he woke me up. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thanks to everyone that gave the super chats. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Double thumbs up. Have a wonderful night, and bye for now. Bye-bye. Alright, how do I end this thing? I'm using this new system and I don't know what I'm doing. IT support! Actually, we're not going to close off the camera right now. I'm going to bring in the IT support for you. Actually, I think I do know how to close it down, but I think we want to get Arianne in the picture for the end of the live stream. Arianne, you're up. Say goodbye. End the video. Sit down.
Stay here.
Sit down. Sit down. That's the cord. You don't want to cut it off. Smash the camera and the and the light. That wouldn't be good. Say goodbye. Everyone wants to see you. You're still live, right?
Hi, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye for now.
Bye. Let me how to stop this.